Well, thank you, everybody, for joining my Tele-Town Hall tonight. This is Congressman Zeldin. Through this Tele-Town Hall, you'll be able to ask me questions directly. If you have a question, you can press *3 at any time. I enjoy hearing from my constituents, sharing work that we are up to here in Congress, representing you, and most importantly, to answer your questions. Again, if you are just joining us and you have a question to ask, you can press *3 at any time. Tonight, I hope to inform you of some of my work over the course of my first 100 days in Congress. My goal has been to be part of positive change, to help put America back on the right track. We need to grow our economy, create more good-paying private sector jobs, strengthen our nation's foreign affairs, veterans affairs, and improve our nation's immigration, healthcare, and education policies. Again, for anyone on the call, if you're just joining us and you have a question you would like to ask, you can just press *3 at any time. And during my first 100 days, I've introduced a handful of bills, and I'm working on several issues on your behalf. By staying on the line tonight for the Tele-Town Hall, we'll be able to discuss together current events, and I can answer your questions. Before we get started, I want to remind you that you can press *3 at any time to ask a question. I wanted to start off by giving some contact information for my office. Our district office is located in Patchogue at 31 Oak Street, Suite 20. Our phone number at our district office is 631-289-1097. Our office in Washington, D.C. is 1517 Longworth House Office Building. That's in D.C. The phone number for the D.C. office is 202-225-3826. Our website is zeldin.house.gov. You can subscribe to e-newsletters for updates. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at REPLEE Zeldin, Rep. Lee Zeldin. Following us on Facebook and Twitter. We communicate with people over email and phone calls, and of course there are these Tele-Town Halls. Just a reminder that if anyone has any questions throughout the duration of this 1-hour call, you can just press *3. We'll be able to bring you on. And some of the issues that you might have some questions you might want to talk about. We are currently negotiating a budget down in Washington. We have legislation that is pretty active with regards to the economy. Legislation impact our veterans. There's Supreme Court action that's going to impact legislative action as it relates to Obamacare. We have education policies as it relates to rolling back federally mandated testing to pre-No Child Left Behind levels. So there's issues with regards to immigration, foreign policy, the president's nuclear deal with Iran. So a lot to talk about. And any questions at all, just press *3, and we'll be able to bring you onto the call. And the first phone call is John. Hello, John.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
Hi. Good evening. You're on.
Is this Lee?
Yes, this is me.
Hi, Lee. I worked a little bit in your campaign, and I filled out some polls and stuff, and got some signatures. And also, I like contributing to your campaign. And so far, I really think you're doing a great job. The only thing is, I wondered why you were supporting the TPP program.
Well,
because I really don't think we should give Mr. Obama any more power than he already has.
So I'm really happy that you're asking about it. First off, thank you for your support, for asking the question tonight. A lot of people have been reading over the course of the last couple days, today and yesterday, the Senate has been debating legislation related to trade. There are two different trade negotiations that are going on right now. One, as you referenced, John, is TPP, which is Trans-Pacific Partnership. And the other one is called TTIP, which is related to Europe. TPA is legislation. The last 50 years of presidents have had the authority to, with TPA, to negotiate trade deals. A lot of people are talking about TPP and TTIP as if there is a final deal. There isn't. There's just active negotiations going on right now. Now, the president already has the ability to engage in negotiations related to TPP and TTIP. President can, if Congress doesn't do anything, the president still can engage in negotiations with countries in Europe as well as around the Pacific Rim. So Congress is trying to inject itself in the process right now. The TPA legislation is over 100 pages long. Some people try to reduce it to a soundbite. It has 150 negotiating objectives. This is Congress setting 150 trade negotiating objectives. If those negotiating objectives are not met, then it's very difficult to be able to make any trade deal become law. So it requires Congress to be consulted, more transparency, more oversight. Right now, there are some people who oppose all trade deals. And listen, I mean, I respect that if that's your position. For me, I support trade. We have a lot of American businesses that have American jobs, good-paying American jobs, 19% over the national average that support exports. It's big for the agriculture industry, big for the manufacturing industry. We have trade currently, and I'm supportive of trade. So, it's a pretty interesting battle line that is drawn right now on this issue. But the question about whether or not I support TPP, I'm not going to decide, whether or not I approve of the TPP deal or the TTIP deal until there's actually a deal to read. I have read the current draft of TPP, and one thing I realized while reading through it is that there's still a whole lot left to be negotiated. So I support talks to see if there's ever any type of diplomatic way that we can improve our economy in talking to any other countries. But I am not going to give my proxy to anyone else in Congress or to the president. I'm not going to give my proxy without being able to read exactly what the TPP is or the TTIP. But really appreciate your question. I apologize to those on the call not familiar with what's going on to be mentioning all of these different acronyms. But in order to honestly answer the question, I had to give you all of that background. So that's what's going on there. And a reminder for anyone who got on the phone call recently that if any of you want to ask a question, just dial *3, and we'll be able to bring you on to ask your question. And the next question will be from Constance.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. My question is about immigration, illegal immigration, and what is being done to enforce it. It has gotten totally out of hand, where we are giving money to people who don't deserve it, who come into this country not only to hurt us, but to hurt us financially. I can't understand. Don't we have laws to prevent illegal people from coming into the United States and ruining our tax system, our school system, everything that is dependent on taxes from legal people?
Well, I appreciate the question. I also appreciate the fact it doesn't go unnoticed that you're asking about illegal people who are coming here illegally, because we also have people who have always been coming to America legally, following the process that we would have on the books at that time. With regards to immigration today, we have laws on the books that just aren't being enforced. There's three components to this that I've noticed over the course of the last few months. One is an effort being led by Mike McCall. He's the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, to improve our border enforcement, our entry process policies. Another effort which is underway, is with Chairman Bob Goodlatte. He's in charge of the Judiciary Committee, and he is working on legislation as far as the enforcement of the laws that are currently on the books. And then there are other proposals that are out there as well that deal with other components of improving our immigration system. In the 1st Congressional District, we have seasonal labor on the South Fork. For forever, we've had tourism and hospitality industry and the H-2B visas with people who come here legally, employers, employees paying taxes. They go home at the end of the season. They come back the following season. On the North Fork, with the H-2A visas and the rural community that we have, there's a lot of red tape as far as the Obama administration. Quite candidly, the Department of Labor stopped processing H-2A and H-2B visas, and that's been something that we've been working on over the course of the last couple of months, because there is a difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. So with the various legislative solutions that are being worked through that I mentioned, Chairman McCall's effort, Chairman Goodlatte's effort, some of the effort with regards to the H-2B, H-2A visas, and some of the other legislative proposals that are out there, the other very important thing to keep in mind is that the President is really playing by his own set of rules on immigration. He signed what really amounted to executive amnesty after the election, before the turn of the new year. It was an executive order that a federal district court in Texas ruled improper, resulting in the Department of Homeland Security forced to stop their efforts. In some respects, they've continued to do certain things through their agency to enforce some of the president's actions. But as far as the court case, it now is going up to the circuit court, and we'll see if the circuit court upholds the district court ruling, which I believe that they will, and then it will go to the Supreme Court, and I believe the Supreme Court will uphold the decision of the district court. The president's executive order was improper, so I mean, we can all talk about the different legislative solutions that are out there, the actions of the judiciary, the efforts to improve our nation's immigration system. The real thing that has caused some huge frustration out there is the president's activities, especially that executive order, which is currently going through a judicial challenge, which likely will result in the executive order not being able to go into effect. So I've been very concerned about illegal immigration. I do not support the president's executive order. I believe that we need to improve our immigration system, and I'm working with Chairman McCall and Chairman Goodlatte in the development of their proposals so we can find a way to get some solutions across the finish line. But yeah, the big variable here is what the president has been doing unilaterally on his own improperly, which I have some big problems with, as I'm sure you do as well. I appreciate your call tonight, and we're going to bring Cindy on. And I would tell anyone on the call, I would ask anyone on the call, if you want to ask a question, dial *3. We're going to ask our first poll question of the night right before we go to Cindy. And the first poll question is, what is the most important issue that you feel faces our country? What is the most important issue that you feel faces our country? Press 1 for taxes. Press 2 for spending or debt. Press 3 for health care. 4 for veterans. 5 for immigration. 6 for education. 7 for jobs. 8 for foreign policy. In no particular order, the 8 choices of the most important issue that you face is 1 for taxes, 2 for spending or debt, 3 for health care, 4 for veterans, 5 for immigration, 6 for education, 7 for jobs, and 8 for foreign policy. And we'll be able to tell you the results after everyone has an opportunity to answer. But in the meantime, we're going to bring Cindy on the call.
Hey,
Hello,
hi.
Cindy. Hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. My question is about Common Core. You had mentioned about wanting to reduce the testing, but what about taking New York State out of Common Core altogether? I mean, there's a lot of talk and a lot of appearing of corruption and politicians who've been bought off by Pearson and all these big companies, and it just seems to get worse and worse with Flanagan replacing Skelos, and it just goes on. And what do you plan to do about it?
So when I was in the state Senate, it was actually my bill that I authored with a couple of Long Island assemblymen that would stop Common Core in New York State. I believe in challenging our students. I don't believe that Common Core is the answer. I was the one that wrote the bill to stop Common Core in New York. It's something that it's a position I continue to have. You have these standards nationally, tests created by the state, curriculum set by the local school district. Pretty much nobody's talking to each other. Teachers teaching to the test, oftentimes teaching to the wrong test because the state isn't setting up the teachers in the local school districts to succeed by letting them know what the test is going to look like. So challenging our students is good. That doesn't mean in any way at all that you want to challenge our students is appropriate. The way that you do it is key in order to provide a quality of education to our students. So at the state level, because New York State signed up for Common Core, New York State would have to choose to step away from Common Core. At the federal level, now that I've been in Congress since January, I have co-sponsored a bill called the Student Testing Improvement and Accountability Act. The Student Testing Improvement and Accountability Act, and it has a lot of growing bipartisan co-sponsorship. This bill will roll back federally mandated testing to pre-No Child Left Behind levels. So previously there would be one test per grade span. And then once No Child Left Behind came around, and this is in reading and math, once No Child Left Behind came around towards the beginning of the prior president's first term, at that point it became testing in math and reading in every grade. So there was a huge tripling of the amount of testing that we were seeing, federally mandated testing in schools. So this bill, which I support, would roll back federally mandated testing to pre-No Child Left Behind levels. With regards to Common Core in general, I introduced an amendment to the ESEA reauthorization. The amendment still has to be voted on. It's been debated. The amendment, which actually they call the Zeldin Amendment, when a member of Congress introduces an amendment, immediately gets called after your last name. So we introduced the Zeldin Amendment, which would allow a state to withdraw from Common Core without any type of penalty whatsoever from the federal government. When I introduced the legislation at the state level to withdraw New York from Common Core, one of the most common arguments that was made against my bill was that if we were to withdraw as a state, that New York would lose federal money. There was actually an article, you can find the article in newspaper outlets. Newsday, for example, covered a story where a U.S. Department of Education official was quoted as saying that if New York State withdrew from Common Core, that it would be in violation to the Race to the Top application and could cost New York money. So the Zeldin Amendment is intended, if passed, to allow a state like New York to withdraw from Common Core without any penalties. So that's some of the stuff that I'm working on. I have identical girls, 8 years old. They're in third grade now. So we're experiencing all of this ourselves with them and their classmates. And so it's something that's very personal as well. So I appreciate the phone call on education. And now we'll give everyone the results from our poll. And the question again was, what is the most important issue that you feel faces our country? And the top answer was spending and debt. 2 was taxes. 3 was immigration. 4 was foreign policy. 5 was healthcare. 6th was education. 7th was jobs, and 8th was veterans. All these issues are obviously hugely important, but I figured I'd just share with you the results from our first poll. And we'll be doing some other polls throughout the call. And just a reminder, anyone has any questions, just dial *3, and we'll be able to bring you in. At this point, we're going to bring in Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. First of all, thank you very much for your service. We are very much a supporter of yours. My question's on health care, and my son is disabled, and it used to be every 3 years, now every 5 years he's eligible for a new motor wheelchair. The last one, before I purchased it, I wanted to do research on make sure it accommodated him, and I come to find out for cash, I could have bought this chair for $10,000, and he got the chair, was approved. We have, good health insurance. And then what happened was the vendor billed the insurance company $30,000, which they paid. I'd like to know why there's such a big difference, whether somebody's paying for cash for $10,000 and why the insurance company is paying out $30,000.
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember as a kid, my grandfather was he was sitting on one of those donuts towards the end of life, and he ended up you sign for receipt of this donut, which you think you could go out and buy somewhere for $25 or $50. It's just a cushion you're sitting on, and the billing was for like $400 to $450, which he wasn't paying. Insurance was paying. So a few things. One is I would encourage you, if you wanted to reach out to my district office, the phone number is 631-289-1097. We get inquiries like this all the time. I got inquiries like this when I was a state legislator, when I was in the state senate. Through New York State, we would put an inquiry in through the Department of Financial Services. With the federal government, we can look into these questions to be able to get answers. We get a lot of individual questions like yours, and the next thing that we do is we go out and try to find an answer for you. So that there's no sense. It does not make any sense whatsoever. I can't begin to try to answer the question. I would just ask you maybe to reach out to my district office in the morning. Again, the phone number is 631-289-1097, so that we can look into it, because it sounds pretty outrageous. Personally, that's a huge difference in price. We're going to bring in our next caller. And by the way, thank you for your phone call, and good luck, but please reach out tomorrow. Next phone call is from Ricardo. Hello, Ricardo.
Lee?
Yes, I got you.
How you doing, brother? It's Danny Rivera.
Oh, hi, Danny. How are you?
Good, partner. I just want to say that you're doing a fabulous job. You're doing a great job. I'm actually here with Tommy right now, too.
All right. Well, you tell everyone on the call. I didn't put you up to calling me.
No,
I didn't put you up
to calling
in
really
saying
great
that,
dude.
but I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm actually having the thing is, I'm actually having trouble actually trying to actually reach you, because I'm doing a new project for kids who are disabled for anti-bullying. Can I get like some information? Because I've been trying to call to maybe try to schedule like a meeting with you on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So who have you been speaking to?
I forgot the woman's name. I'm sorry, I forgot the woman's name. But every time I speak to her, she always says I gotta write like a letter or something to you.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. I don't know offhand. I mean, obviously, you and I have I've had a lot of conversations with the effort that you're involved in. I appreciate everything that you're doing to combat the bullying that's going on in our schools. I even remember you filming a rap video that was that you posted up on Facebook last summer, which was very cool of you. But all of your support is great. Your effort is something that that I support. As far as anything further I could do to help, I'm not sure who in the office you reached out to, but if you can call my Patchogue office at 631-289-1097. My district director is Mark Woolley. We'll tell Mark that I spoke to you here on this call, and just let me know specifically what I could do to help. One of the interesting things as far as getting together is, you take a week like this week. I'm down in D.C. currently doing this call from D.C. We have votes through Friday. I come back Friday night. So Monday through Friday, I'm out, and then I'm in D.C. I'm not in the district. So there are people out there in the district who want me to meet with them, and I've actually found myself able to meet with a lot more members, a lot more constituents here, just because we're down here for votes. And I'm usually up in the district. Well, I am up in the district every weekend. But again, 631-289-1097. Ask for Mark Woolley, my district director, and you just let me know what I can do to help. But I already know everything that you have going on, and I appreciate what you're doing. You're helping out kids, and you're doing a good thing with all of your time. All right, thanks, Danny. And now we're going to bring in Clinton.
Hello, Lee. My name is Patsy. I'm not Clinton, but my name is Patsy.
Okay. Hi, Patsy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
I'm fine, good. My daughter interned from you for a couple of hours. Her name's Cody.
Oh, a couple hours, huh?
Yeah, she did intern for you for a couple of hours, but she be maybe looking for another internship, so keep those internships open. But anyway, Obamacare, can they do something about the middle class who have to pay so much of their income out for that?
So, one of the things that that I've noticed here in Washington is, so the Supreme Court has a case that has been heard, and they're expected to make a decision next month. I've heard a whole lot of chatter about this case on Obamacare from people who support Obamacare and oppose Obamacare, and I wouldn't say it's a consensus, but I've heard a lot from both sides that there's anticipation that the Supreme Court next month will be overturning a large part of Obamacare, which would mean that whether you support it or oppose it, everyone's going to get asked the question, all right, what do we do now? So the president, congressional Democrats, they have been working on developing their answer for after the Supreme Court rules. Congressional Republicans have been working on developing a plan for what to do after the Supreme Court rules. I have been very critical of Obamacare since before it was even enacted. Once put into place, Obamacare has resulted in, for a lot of people, and listen, I've come across people who say, I love Obamacare just as it is. They say keep it as is. They say that, it's been a very positive thing for them. I will also say that I've come across a whole lot of other people who have said either my premium has gone up, my deductible has gone up, I've lost my doctor, I've had a canceled policy, a longer wait time. Some people are paying more for less. Employers are passing down costs to their employees. Employees are upset at their employer. Why are you making me pay more and you're giving me less of a health care service? There's been a lot of negative activities that have been a consequence of enacting Obamacare. So as far as the congressional side goes, we have a few members led by John Klein and Paul Ryan and Fred Upton, because we have multiple proposals out there of what to do, what healthcare should look like in America post-Obamacare, if there was that change made to it. There are multiple proposals, and right now we have 3 committee chairmen who are working on bringing everything together to propose what healthcare should look like. And again, I would just say strategically, for people out there who are wondering really what's next, it's going to be the court ruling at some point before the end of June on that case, which could result in a lot of Obamacare being overturned. And then as far as the next step immediately after it, both supporters and opponents of Obamacare proposing an answer to the what are we going to do next. So that's where we're at. Appreciate your question, and I think that for those of us, listen, for the people such as myself, I'm hoping the Supreme Court overturns the part of Obamacare that is before them now, and that there's a healthy debate not only in Congress, but also with all the people running for president, Republicans, Democrats. There's a lot of people out there who want to be president of the United States in 2017. Healthcare is going to be a big issue for the next person and the person after that. So if you're running for president of the United States, it'd be nice and very healthy to hear what your idea, what their ideas are as well. So thanks again for your question. And the next poll question we have is: do you support the United States entering into an agreement with Iran that involves Iran keeping their nuclear capabilities? Do you support the United States entering into an agreement with Iran that involves Iran keeping their nuclear capabilities? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. Press 1 for yes or 2 for no. So the question is with Iran, which can be phrased another way. Do you believe the negotiations with Iran are going on the right track or the wrong track? You could press 1 for right track, press 2 for wrong track. So two different questions, but I'm sure with the conversations I've been having with people, you probably will be answering the same for both. But if you believe that the negotiations with Iran are on the right track, press 1. If you believe it's going on the wrong track, press 2. And while we ask the question, it's important to note that as far as the talks with Iran, the president about a month ago, he said that we reached a framework agreement with the Iranian regime. He released a fact sheet at that time. That fact sheet within 24 hours was refuted by the Iranian foreign minister. The Ayatollah refuted the fact sheet as well, chanting on the streets of Iran, "Death to America." The fact sheet was refuted, yet it still stated that Iran was able to keep their nuclear facilities, continuing to spin centrifuges, enrich uranium, huge challenges, questions with regards to access for weapons inspectors, temporary concessions on our part in exchange for permanent concessions on the part of the Iranians, temporary concessions on the part of the Iranians in exchange for permanent concessions on the part of America. If we're making permanent concessions and the Iranians just have to wait 12 or 13 years, wait out the clock, and then they have a nuclear weapon, that's a problem maybe not as much for the current president's time in office, but that is something for the next president that's be left to deal with. And there's a lot that's not part of the nuclear negotiations in Iran. Iran working to overthrow foreign governments, sponsoring state terrorism. It's the world's largest sponsor of state terrorism, pledging to wipe Israel off the map, chanting death to America, developing ICBMs, unjustly imprisoning United States citizens. I serve on 3 committees. I'm on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. But on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've been very active on this issue because I also serve on the Middle East and North Africa Subcommittee, as well as the Terrorism, Nonproliferation, and Trade Subcommittee. So the answer to the poll, really no surprise from all the feedback that I've been getting. The question again was whether or not you believed that the negotiations with Iran are going on the right track or the wrong track. And 84% say wrong track, and 16% say right track. So there's a lot of concern out there. I share that concern as well. And the next caller will be Gabriella.
Hi, Mr. Zeldin. This is obviously Gabriella, and I'm a teacher. My husband is a teacher, and my brother. We're all teachers in Patchogue, Medford. And the reason I called, and I've been listening, is because I'm very concerned. All three of us work very hard. My husband is an art teacher. I'm a special ed teacher, and my brother is a fifth grade teacher. And we're both close. We're all close to retiring. And my concern is, and it's not my retirement, what I'm concerned with is the way the scoring, 50% of my score is based on how my students do on these exams. And as I've said, I'm a special ed teacher, and my students may be in 7th grade, but many of them read at a 1st and 2nd grade level. Number two, not only are they in 7th grade and expected to participate in this curriculum as other mainstream students are participating, but their IQs are sometimes in the 70 and 80 range. It would be almost impossible for them to score a 3 or 4 on these exams. Now, if the exams were, say, at their Lexile level, we participate in a Scholastic Read 180 program. If their exams were at their Lexile level, where we would truly see growth. So, for example, someone read at a 3rd grade level and their test is at a 3rd grade level, and then we could see that they were progressing. There's no way they're going to pass when they're expected to read at a 7th grade level when they don't read at a 7th grade level. And, you know, the woman before was mentioning about these immigrants, and I kind of resent that because many of my students are immigrants, and I don't think she's talking about Swedish immigrants. I don't think she's talking about Irish American or Irish immigrants. She's talking about Latino immigrants, and I resent that. That's just a little aside, but more to the point, it's not just for me or for my husband or for my brother, but all of my colleagues. We're expected to close this gap, particularly special ed teachers, and it's impossible. And then our score is based on that. I work very hard. I know you're listening so patiently to me, but I work sometimes till 6 or 7 at night, and sometimes during my lessons I have to say to the kids, I feel like I have to say I can't address that question because we have to move on. And as it is, I cannot get through the social studies curriculum in 7th or 8th grade, which is what I teach, in 10 months, even if I'm working at full speed ahead, because I was trained at St. Joseph's to teach in a certain way so that they can understand the material. But if I teach in the way that gets me through the curriculum, then they're not getting it. And I'm very concerned that this is where it's going. And I guess my question is, you know, do you see any change in how we're going to be scored, particularly for our most needy students who are in a class because they're needy?
Well, so my mother's a retired special education teacher. I grew up, around her classroom. I could certainly relate to what you're experiencing in your classroom. I mean, my mother was in elementary school, junior high school, and high school special ed teacher. She was at all of the levels. Right now, one of my concerns with the Common Core, with the implementation, with the testing, is a lot of the materials not age appropriate. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the example of that special education student, as you mentioned, who might be reading at a 1st or 2nd grade reading level, yet they're being tested as if they were a 5th grader. And I don't think that is helpful for the student to put them through that, for that special ed student who will not be capable of succeeding on that test. We have one of the examples I point to as far as the domain for early world civilization, English language arts. For 1st graders, 6-year-olds, we're teaching kids about ancient world Mesopotamia, the strategic advantage of the Tigris and Euphrates River with the development of the city of Babylon. 1st graders, I remember learning about Mesopotamia, but I wasn't learning that when I was 6 years old. There are some other lessons that might be a little more age appropriate. We have, as I mentioned earlier in the call, we have teachers at times teaching to the wrong test because they haven't been given the questions afterwards, to be able to analyze a test from this year to help them better prepare for next year. And the lack of communication and coordination between the different bureaucracies. As I mentioned, you have standards created that are the standards that are now national, tests created by the state, curriculum set by the local school district, and a lack of communication. So I understand what you are going through, and I feel for it. I get it. That's why I introduced the bill up in Albany to pull New York, added to stop Common Core in New York State. I've co-sponsored the legislation to roll back federally mandated testing to pre-No Child Left Behind levels. I introduced the amendment to allow New York State to withdraw from Common Core without penalty. And there are some other efforts as well, another one called the Local Control of Education Act, which I co-sponsor as well. So there's a lot going on at the federal level. I'm just trying to build up more support because as I hit resistance when I was in the state Senate, I'm experiencing resistance here as well. So we're going to go to our third poll question. The question is, do you approve of my job so far in the first 100 days? So I'm just over 100 days in office. And if you approve of the job I'm doing so far as your congressman, through these first 100 days, you could press 1 for yes and 2 for no. You approve of the job I've done so far representing you in the first 100 days, press 1 for yes, 2 for no. You can only vote twice if you say yes. I'm just kidding. That's not true. You can only vote once. All right, so we're going to bring the next caller on the line, and it is Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Cheryl? Might have lost Cheryl. Going once? Okay, well, we lost Cheryl. So, again, anyone wants to ask any questions, just dial *3. We're going to try our best to get to as many calls before we hit the 1 hour mark as possible. And then whoever we don't get to, you can leave your question and we'll get back to everyone who still has a question after the fact. So, the next caller will be Patrick. Patrick, can you hear me?
Yes, Congressman. Good to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well tonight. How are you?
There's just so many wrong things in Washington these days. I'm glad you're our congressman down there. I wanted to know that just yesterday there was news about spending that for things that the Homeland Security was never intended to spend on. There's one issue where there would be spending that we totally disagree with, but what do we do about spending that's actually budgeted and gets spent on things that was never intended to be spent on in the first place? You had a fellow congressman on the news yesterday that was mentioning various things that was budgeted for the Homeland Security, which was being spent in ways it was never intended to be spent on. Is there anything to curtail that as part of the budget process right now?
So Congress has the constitutional authority to authorize, to fund various agencies and programs that Congress deems appropriate. And if, I'll have someone who will come to me advocating that they're trying to secure, maybe it's a local government, they're trying to secure a grant for a particular purpose. They might be asking for something where there isn't a pot of money, where it is an authorized purpose to give that grantee money for the reason that they're intending. There's just no pot of money. I'll have someone else come. They want to apply, that maybe it's the same local government. They want to apply for a different kind of grant from a different a different agency, and there is a pot of money that Congress has authorized and correctly appropriated. And then we try to work on behalf of that grantee to secure them the funding that they're requesting. That's how I operated when I was a New York State Senator, and it's the same thing here. There are people who are asking for money, sometimes just pots that literally don't exist. Now, if you're a federal agency and you're getting your funding from an appropriation from Congress, let's say Congress passed, you're the Department of Homeland Security and Congress passed funding for the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security is not allowed to legally use that money for a purpose other than what Congress passed it for. It would be an unauthorized use. Congress is frequently faced with, and doesn't matter which Congress it is, whenever it's been in office, whoever the president has been, Congress has the oversight authority to ensure that none of the money that was appropriated is being wrongfully spent. So you have these different committees of jurisdiction. There's a Homeland Security Committee. So using the Department of Homeland Security, using your question as the example, the Homeland Security Committee has oversight over how the Department of Homeland Security is spending the money that's authorized by Congress. So if there's any specific, now I'm not on the Homeland Security Committee. I'm on Foreign Affairs, Veterans Affairs, and Transportation and Infrastructure. But we have other members from New York, from Long Island, who serve on the Homeland Security Committee. And if you have a specific concern, my office can work with their office and see if that committee can provide answers from an oversight capacity. If there are specifics that you are concerned about, constituents are concerned about, a lot of the information that we get, that when in our activities advocating for a particular cause, is based off of feedback that we get from constituents. So, if you want to call my Washington D.C. office, it's 202-225-3826. I would encourage you to ask for Matthew Scott as far as the Department of Homeland Security question that you have. And we will work with the Homeland Security Committee to find answers. And, who knows, sometimes a constituent concern like yours can become part of a committee hearing as far as oversight over the agency, because the Secretary of Homeland Security goes before that committee, as does all the committees with jurisdiction over various departments. So now the result of our poll, and everybody was very kind and generous with your answers. Do you approve of the job that I've been doing so far, as we just passed our 100-day mark, and 89% said yes, and 11% said no. So I really appreciate all of the great marks from all of you, and even the 11%, we could still be friends. Okay, so that was our third polling question for the night. We're getting close to 7:30. Again, if we don't get to your question tonight, please you'll be able to leave a voicemail after the call, and we'll be able to get to your question after the call. So the next caller is Jean. Jean, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi, Jean.
In regards to your first poll that you conducted, I could have chose every single one of them because they're all a concern.
Yeah, I understand.
But I chose jobs because it's relevant to my question. My husband is a police officer, and in light of what's happening in this country right now, I'd like to know what our elected officials are going to do about the divisiveness that is happening right now between poor communities and law enforcement. Our president and our attorney general have done nothing but divide this country. It is never, in my 52 years, I have never experienced anything like this. I believe that jobs are important, especially in poor communities where they don't go to sell drugs or commit crimes because they have jobs to go to. So their lives are better and our police are safer. And I'd like to know your opinions and your feelings on this, please.
Great.
Every time my husband...
Sorry, we might have just lost Gene. So let me answer the first. Let me say thank you to your husband for serving in uniform. I actually gave a speech on the House floor today on this. This is National Police Week. It was started just over 50 years ago from President John Kennedy, naming May 15th as a day, but this week as National Police Week. We are expecting tens of thousands of law enforcement from all across the country here. Just last week, NYPD officer 25-year-old Brian Moore lost his life in the line of duty. And I was, while I had every intention as I walked onto the House floor to make my speech mentioning Officer Moore, thanking our law enforcement, recognizing National Police Week, it was great to hear a Texas congressman speaking out so passionately and so knowledgeably about Brian Moore's family and his service. Part of my words included a message to the so-called protesters who resort to violence, looting. In one case, they burned down a church-run senior center in Baltimore. And any shot ever of trying to gain the moral high ground in any kind of a protest is lost. Once you start victimizing businesses and individuals with violence, and that was part of my message as well. We need to raise our children to respect law enforcement. Law enforcement put their lives on the line to keep our community safe all across America. So I think it is unfortunate. I've been critical of the prosecutor in Baltimore in that case, how 6 were charged instantly. 6 officers were charged instantly, and then the investigation was to follow. And I was a prosecutor for a year and a half. I was a magistrate for a year. You don't prosecute, you don't charge someone and then you investigate afterwards. And I think that you have too many elected officials pandering for votes and trying to tap into and further divide law enforcement and community residents to try to serve their own personal agenda of trying to get themselves reelected. It's resulted in further risk for those who wear the uniform. And I served in the military. Growing up, my stepfather was a state trooper. My stepmother, she's a retired probation officer. I just grew up with a lot of respect for law enforcement. A lot of people serve in different ways. We have firefighters out there, and we have people who are answering calls to their local ambulance company. There are many different ways to serve. The lack of respect right now it's unfortunate, but I think we need to improve the tone, the dialogue, and show some more love to our law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day. Our final poll question for the night: if you would like to subscribe to my e-newsletter, there's only one option. You can press 1 if you want to subscribe. You don't have to press anything if you don't want to subscribe, but if you want to subscribe to my e-newsletter, please press 1 because we'd love to be able to stay in contact with you over email. So my Washington, D.C. office, again, just to give my contact information, it's 1517 Longworth House Office Building. The phone number is 202-225-3826. My Patchogue office is 31 Oak Street, Suite 20. The phone number is 631-289-1097. My website is zeldin.house.gov. You can subscribe directly on the website for emails, or you can just press 1, and you can stay in touch with us over email. You can like my page on Facebook, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Rep, Leezeldin. We have a ton of questions that we were able to get to, a ton of questions we haven't been able to get to yet. If you're on the call, you have any question whatsoever you want answered, please leave a message so that we can get back to each and every one of you. I thank you for participating. We will continue to do these Tele-Town Hall calls throughout my time in office. It's a very great way for us to be able to stay in touch. And for all of you still on the call, thank you so much. And I also want to say thank you for the privilege that it is to represent you in Washington. It truly is an honor each and every day. I'm down here right now thinking of all of you back home, and if you ever need anything, please reach out to my office. Let me know where you stand on important issues so that I can represent you as best as I can. And have a great night.